Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a life that is, well, it's honestly hard to overstate. We aren't just turning the pages of a history book today.
No, we're really not.
We are stepping into the laboratory of probably the most significant scientific pioneer of the modern era.
Without a doubt.
Someone who didn't just break the glass ceiling, she completely shattered it, irradiated it even,
Right.
and then she won a Nobel Prize for it.
Two of them.
Right, two of them. And looking at the stack of research we have on the table for you today, the word pioneer almost feels like an understatement.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
You know, it's rare that we get to do a deep dive on someone whose resume is quite literally unique in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
We're looking at a life that completely redefined physics, chemistry, and medicine. Usually when we analyze these sources, we are looking for that one specific aha moment. But here, the entire life is just a sequence of them.
And when you say unique, you really aren't exaggerating. I was looking through the highlights of the source material before we started, and the list of firsts is just staggering. Absolutely staggering.
I mean, usually you have a scientist who is great at one thing, right? Like maybe they are a brilliant theorist, or maybe they are a great experimentalist. But here we have someone who did it all.
Exactly. She possessed this rare combination of deep theoretical insight and just relentless practical work ethic.
So let's just hit the headlines right off the bat to set the stakes for you. We are talking about the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, period.
A monumental achievement. And this was in 1903.
Right.
We have to remember the context of 1903. This was a time when women were largely excluded from the scientific establishment entirely.
Just completely shut
So just being in the room was a massive victory. But winning the top prize, that was earth-shattering.
But that wasn't enough. And this is the statistic that always blows my mind every time I read it. She is also the only person, man or woman, to win Nobel Prizes in two different fields.
Physics and chemistry.
Physics and chemistry.
And that distinction remains true to this very day. That is the key thing to remember. There are a few people who have won two Nobels, like Linus Pauling.
Right, Linus Pauling comes to mind. But usually it's in the exact same field, or maybe one of them is for peace.
Yeah.
To win in two distinct, rigorous scientific disciplines like physics and chemistry speaks to a versatility and a depth of intellect that is practically unmatched in history.
It's unbelievable.
It implies she didn't just understand the abstract forces of the universe. She fundamentally understood the physical matter that those forces act upon.
It really is the ultimate mic drop of scientific careers. We are, of course, talking about Marie Curie.
Marie Curie, a name that is entirely synonymous with radioactivity, which is a term she actually coined, by the way.
Exactly. So our mission today on this deep dive is to move past the simple biosketch. We all know the famous photo, right? This very serious-looking woman in the lab coat.
Right, the iconic image.
But we want to unpack the actual life of this relentless intellect for you. We want to understand how she did it. How do you go from a governess in occupied Poland to the most famous scientist in the entire world?
Because it wasn't magic. It was intense curiosity. It was rigorous observation. And it was a truly fascinating partnership.
And we have some incredible details from the sources to get through today. We're going to talk about the mystery of pitchblende.
Which sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does, but it's actually the setting for one of the greatest detective stories in science history. We're also going to talk about portable war machines. And we're going to dig into her surprising roots in the Russian Empire.
That political context is actually vital to understanding her drive. You really cannot separate the scientist from the environment she grew up in.
So let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to the very beginning. Section 1, origins and the Polish roots.
Let's do it.
So Marie Curie, we know the name, we know the fame in France, but she wasn't born Marie, and she wasn't born in France.
No, she was not. She was born Maria Skłodowska on November 7, 1867 in Warsaw.
And Warsaw at this time, this wasn't just Poland as we know it today. If you looked at a map in 1867, you might actually have trouble finding it.
Correct. The source material specifies this was the Kingdom of Poland. But crucially, it was then a part of the Russian Empire.
Right.
This is a very specific and frankly oppressive geopolitical setting. The Russian Empire wasn't just governing Poland, they were actively trying to suppress Polish culture.
So she's born into an occupied territory, essentially.
Yes. And living under imperial rule often shapes the identity of the people there in profound ways. It creates a strong sense of resistance or a desperate need to preserve one's culture and intellect.
Absolutely.
When your language is banned in schools or your history is rewritten by the occupier, holding on to you, your knowledge becomes a revolutionary act. And for Marie, that intellect was cultivated right at home.
Let's talk about that family foundation, because we often see these historical geniuses just pop up out of nowhere. But in this case, the apple really didn't fall far from the tree.
Not at all. Her father's name was Ladislaus Sklodowska, and her mother was Bronislawa Sklodowska. And here's the key detail from the sources. Both of them were teachers.
Both teachers. That changes the whole dynamic of a household right there.
It completely does. Both were deeply involved in education. Her father taught mathematics and physics.
Which is obviously huge foreshadowing.
Exactly. And her mother was the head of a prestigious boarding school for girls.
So you can imagine the dinner table conversation in that house. It wasn't just small talk about the weather.
You know, education wasn't just a hobby for them. It was the family trade. It was their entire value system. And Marie was the youngest of 5 children.
The baby of the family.
The baby of the family, surrounded by educators and older siblings. You can imagine the academic pressure, or perhaps the academic inspiration that comes from that dynamic.
Definitely.
Being raised by 2 teachers likely shaped her academic drive from day one. She wasn't just learning at school, she was immersed in learning at home constantly.
And the sources mention the political struggle too, right?
Yes. Because of that Russian oppression we mentioned, her father often struggled professionally due to his pro-Polish sentiments. So Marie saw firsthand from a very young age that being smart and having integrity could be a real struggle.
But that it was worth it. And it really shows in her early trajectory. I mean, we have the records of her education path. She started attending the J. Sikora boarding school.
Yes, she began there when she was 10 years old.
And then she moved on to a gymnasium for girls. Now, gymnasium in the European sense, that's not a place with basketball hoops and gym mats. That's a serious elite secondary school, right?
That's correct. It's a rigorous academic environment, preparatory for higher education. It's heavy on Latin Greek history and advanced mathematics. It is specifically designed to filter out the very best students.
Right.
And she didn't just survive that environment, she completely crushed it.
Crushed it is the right phrase. She graduated on June 12, 1883. And what did she walk away with?
A gold medal.
A gold medal. I love that detail so much.
Yeah.
It signals for us that this wasn't a case of a late bloomer finding her passion later in life. She was brilliant from the jump.
It establishes a clear trajectory of brilliance early on.
Yeah.
She wasn't just a participant in her education, she was the absolute top performer.
Yeah.
In a time and place where opportunities for women were incredibly limited and literally living under the thumb of the Russian Empire, she is graduating with the highest honors available to her. It tells us that she had a capacity for focus that was unusual even then.
But here is where the story hits a bit of a snag. Or maybe a detour is a better word. She graduates in 1883 with a gold medal. She's brilliant, she's ambitious, but she doesn't pop up in a lab in Paris until years later.
That's right. There is a gap in the timeline, a significant one.
Let's move into section 2, the migration to science. Because she does end up in Paris, but it doesn't happen overnight.
The sources tell us she started her practical scientific training in a chemical laboratory in 1891. That is a full 8 years after she graduated from the gymnasium.
So she had to wait 8 years. Why the wait?
Well, primarily it came down to money and access. Women couldn't attend the University of Warsaw. It was strictly men only.
Wow.
So she wanted to continue her education. She had to leave the country. But to leave the country, you need money. So she worked as a governess.
Essentially a private tutor for wealthy families.
Exactly. She did that to save up the funds she needed.
That shows incredible grit. Think about it. Most people would have just given up on the dream after 2 or 3 years of that, the daily grind. But she held on to this vision for 8 long years.
She did. And that immense patience and discipline makes the eventual move even more significant. In 1891, she finally makes the move to France, specifically to Paris.
Why Paris, though? Why not Berlin or London?
Paris was really the center of the intellectual world at that time. But more specifically, she went there to pursue higher education at the Sorbonne University.
The Sorbonne. Even today, that name carries so much weight.
It's legendary. It was one of the few places that was open to accepting female students in the sciences, though they were still very, very rare. And she didn't waste any time when she got there. She enrolled immediately upon moving in 1891.
And this is where the timeline gets intense again. We just talked about her gold medal in high school, but look at the speed of her degrees at the Sorbonne. She's been out of a formal school setting for 8 years working as a governess, and she just jumps right back into the deep end.
It is remarkable. She arrives in 1891. By 1893, she is awarded a master's degree in physics.
That is just so fast.
It's incredibly fast.
Right.
Think about the logistics of it. She moves to a brand new country, is studying high-level science in a second language.
French.
Right, French. And with 2 years, she has mastered physics at a graduate level.
A master's in physics in 2 years in a foreign language, that is just showing off, honestly.
That demonstrates a ferocious work ethic. And she didn't stop there.
No, she kept going.
She returned to Paris in 1894 to pursue a PhD.
So she's collecting advanced degrees like they're trading cards at this point.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
But 1894 is a pivotal year for a completely different reason. It's not just about the degrees anymore. This is when the personal and the professional collide for her.
Let's unpack that. Section 3, the partnership. Because you really cannot tell the story of Marie Curie without Pierre.
You really can't. They met in 1894.
And Pierre Curie, what was his profile? Was he just some guy she met at a cafe?
No, he was a scientist, just like Marie. In fact, he was already quite an established researcher in his own right.
Okay, so a meeting of minds.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes this dynamic strongly. Like Marie, he was a dedicated scientist. And the two of them fell in love. But it's fascinating to think that their love was deeply grounded in that shared passion for science.
It wasn't just a superficial attraction.
Right. It was a mutual respect for how the other person approached a complex problem.
It's kind of the ultimate nerd romance, isn't it?
In the best possible way, yes.
Right.
They weren't just partners in life. They were truly partners in the laboratory.
And they didn't wait long to seal the deal either.
No, they didn't. They married on July 26, 1895.
So she meets him in 94, and they are married in 95.
A whirlwind timeline. And they built a life together beyond the lab, too. They had 2 daughters.
Which I think is a crucial detail to keep in mind for you listening. We are going to talk about them spending hours and hours and hours in the lab dealing with radiation. But they were also raising a family at the same time.
It frames them not just as a married couple, but as a power couple of the laboratory. They are balancing family life with cutting-edge, world-changing research.
And that research, that is where things get really wild. Let's transition to Section 4, the scientific detective story.
This is the era of the discovery of radioactivity.
But they didn't just wake up one morning and invent it from scratch. They were standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Science is always a conversation with the people who came before you.
Correct. Science is always a relay race. There were precursors to their work.
Who were the key players setting the stage for them?
The sources highlight 2 specific names, Wilhelm Röntgen and Henri Becquerel.
Okay, Röntgen. He's the X-ray guy, right?
Yes. Wilhelm Röntgen had recently discovered X-rays.
Which must have been completely mind-blowing at the time. The idea of seeing inside the human body without surgery.
Absolutely revolutionary. It captured the public imagination completely.
And then you have Henri Becquerel.
Right, Henri Becquerel. He had found rays given off by the element uranium.
Okay.
But his discovery was viewed a bit differently at the time. He found that uranium could essentially fog a photographic plate.
So people knew that uranium was doing something unusual.
They knew it was emitting some kind of rays, but they didn't fully understand the nature or the power of them. At the time, most scientists were totally obsessed with Röntgen's X-rays because they were so flashy and obviously useful.
Right.
Becquerel's rays were seen as kind of weak, just a scientific curiosity.
So people were basically saying, oh, that rock is glowing slightly. That's nice. Let's get back to the X-rays.
Exactly. And this is exactly where Marie enters the picture. The source says she became fascinated by these specific rays.
Fascinated. I love that word. It's the spark for everything that follows. While everyone else was looking at X-rays, she looked at the uranium.
She did. That fascination kicked off her specific line of inquiry.
And this leads us to the pitch blende anomaly. This, to me, is the absolute coolest part of the story. It reads like a total detective mystery.
It is the classic scientific method in action.
So walk us through it. What exactly was she looking at?
She began experimenting with a material called pitch blende.
Pitch blende. It's a mineral.
Yes, it's a mineral. It contains uranium. Now, here is the setup for the mystery. Marie developed a way to precisely measure the rays coming off the samples. She knew exactly how much uranium was inside the pitch blende she was testing.
Right, because it's a known chemical formula. You can test for it.
And based on Becquerel's previous work, she knew how many rays that specific amount of uranium should give off.
Okay, I follow. So X amount of uranium equals Y amount of rays. It's just simple math.
Precisely. That was the baseline expectation. She expected there to be a few rays for the uranium in the pitchblende proportionate to the uranium content.
Standard logic. If I have a chocolate chip cookie, I expect a certain predictable amount of chocolate.
But then she actually measured it.
What happened?
The reality contradicted the expectation entirely. She found a lot of rays.
A lot. Like slightly more or?
Far more. Far more rays than the uranium content alone could possibly account for.
So hold on, let me make sure I have this right. It's like having a box that you think has one standard light bulb in it, but it's glowing like the sun.
That is the perfect analogy. And when you see that box glowing like the sun, you immediately realize there must be something else inside the box.
That is the big aha moment.
That is the deduction. She realized there must be a new undiscovered element hidden inside the pitchblende that was causing all this excess radiation.
Because the uranium alone physically couldn't do it. The math simply didn't add up unless there was a secret ingredient.
Exactly. And finding that secret ingredient became their absolute obsession. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, the grind and the new elements.
Because it's one thing to confidently say, I think there's something new in there. It's a completely different thing to actually get it out. Pitchblende is a highly complex mineral.
And this was grueling work. The sources tell us Marie and Pierre spent many hours in the science lab.
Investigating the pitchblende.
Right. They were trying to isolate the specific source of these strong rays. And to do that, they had to process vast quantities of this mineral.
And what they eventually found was even more surprising than they originally expected. It wasn't just one missing element.
No, it wasn't. They eventually figured out that there were two entirely new elements hidden in the pitchblende.
A double discovery.
A double discovery for the periodic table. Think about the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
Most chemists go their entire lives without discovering a single element. They found two inside the same rock.
And because she made the discovery, she got the naming rights.
She certainly did.
Let's talk about those names because they are very significant.
They are. Element number 1, they named polonium.
Polonium.
Okay.
And that's a direct nod to her homeland, Poland.
Yes.
Which, as we established earlier, was under Russian rule at the time.
Exactly. This is a fascinating intersection of hard science and bold politics.
Yeah.
Naming a fundamental element of the universe after a country that technically didn't exist as an independent state on the map at that moment, that is a massive patriotic statement.
It's a quiet but incredibly powerful rebellion. It's like saying, you can occupy my country and you can ban my language, but I am going to permanently put Poland on the periodic table of elements.
It's brilliant. Every single time a scientist anywhere in the world, including scientists inside the Russian Empire, referenced that new element, they had to acknowledge Poland.
And what about the second element?
The second one was radium.
Radium!
Named specifically because it gave off such strong rays.
Makes total sense. Radium.
And to wrap a bow on this entirely new field of science, the Curies coined a term to describe these specific types of elements that emitted these strong rays.
And that word is?
Radioactivity.
So before them, we didn't even have the word for it.
We had observed the phenomenon, but they gave it the name. They defined the field.
It's hard to overstate how big this is for you listening. This is the absolute bedrock of everything from modern nuclear power to advanced cancer treatments.
It is the foundation. And trust me, the world noticed.
Oh, they definitely noticed. Which brings us right into Section 6, the Nobel era.
The global recognition officially begins in 1903.
The 1903 Nobel Prize in Physics. Who exactly was on the ticket for that one?
The recipients were Marie Curie, Pierre Curie, and Henri Becquerel.
The three musketeers of radiation.
Exactly. They were awarded it jointly for their combined work in radiation.
And this is the historic moment.
This is the moment. Marie becomes the first woman to ever be awarded the Nobel Prize.
1903. Just think about the scientific community in 1903. It was an exclusive boys' club.
Exclusively.
Hey.
For her to break into that inner circle and be recognized at the absolute highest level of global science, it changed everything.
But she wasn't done.
No, she wasn't. In 1911, she was back in Stockholm.
The 1911 Nobel Prize.
This time in chemistry.
And this time, was she sharing the stage with anyone?
No. She won this one entirely solo.
A solo Nobel Prize.
Specifically for discovering the two elements polonium and radium.
And this cements the staggering record we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
Yes. She became the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes. And as we said, she remains the only person to win in 2 different fields, physics and chemistry, and across multiple sciences.
It highlights the brilliant interdisciplinary nature of her mind. She wasn't just looking at the physical properties of the rays, she was isolating the chemical properties of the elements causing them.
She was a complete scientist.
And the source mentions that this brought her a level of fame that was pretty much unprecedented for a scientist.
She became globally famous. Scientists traveled from all around the world just to study radioactivity with her.
But then the world changes again.
Yes. We move from the sterile environment of the lab to the chaos of the battlefield.
Section 7, Science Applied. Because we so often think of theoretical physics as just that, theoretical, just complex numbers on a chalkboard.
But Marie Curie's work had immediate, tangible, life-saving applications. And she was absolutely determined to see them used to help people.
First in medicine generally, right?
Right. Soon after the discoveries, doctors found that radiology could actually help with curing cancer.
Which is a transition from theory finding the elements to practice saving human lives.
It was a massive medical breakthrough.
But then World War I breaks out.
The crisis begins.
And Marie Curie didn't just hide out in her lab. She easily could have. She was a national treasure in France. She could have stayed far away from the front lines and been perfectly safe.
But she didn't. She saw a desperate need.
What was the specific problem she was trying to solve for the military?
Doctors urgently needed x-rays. They needed to see exactly what was wrong with the injured soldiers coming in. Bullets, shrapnel, broken bones.
Because otherwise the surgeons are just probing blindly, right?
Exactly. But the problem was logistics. X-ray machines were massive, clunky pieces of equipment stuck in major hospitals. You can't safely transport a critically wounded soldier from a muddy trench all the way to a hospital in Paris just to get an X-ray.
So what was her solution?
She found and developed a new portable system.
Portable X-rays?
Yes, to carry the X-ray machines directly to the front lines where the soldiers actually were.
That is just genius. Bringing the high-tech lab right to the mud of the battlefield.
And the sheer impact of this innovation was staggering.
The numbers in the sources are huge.
The source states she helped over 1 million soldiers during the war.
1 million soldiers.
1 million.
That is an entire army in itself.
It is, and this is such a crucial pivot in her biography. We always picture her as the quiet woman with the test tubes. But here she is using high-level physics for immediate humanitarian aid on a massive scale.
It really rounds out her character, doesn't it? She wasn't just an intellectual, she was a true humanitarian.
Absolutely. She applied her genius to alleviate human suffering.
So we eventually come to the end of the journey. Section 8, the final chapter.
Marie Curie died on July 4, 1934.
Where was she living at the time?
In Passy-Haute, Savoie, France.
And what was her age?
She was 66 years old.
66.
Yes. But the legacy she left behind is completely immortal.
She left us with so much more than just new elements and medical machines. She actually left us with a philosophy.
There's a really beautiful closing quote attributed to her in the source material.
I have it right here, she said. You cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals.
You cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals.
That is profound.
It really summarizes her entire life perfectly, doesn't it?
It does. She improved herself through relentless education. She improved science through groundbreaking discovery. And finally, she improved the world through medicine and war relief.
She didn't just wish for progress, she became the progress.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today,
it is definitely worth just pausing to summarize the sheer greatness we have just discussed.
Let's look at the scoreboard one last time.
The only person to win Nobels in 2 different fields.
Check.
A journey from a boarding school in Russian-occupied Poland to the portable X-ray fields of World War I.
Check.
It is a legacy that touches almost every single aspect of our modern lives.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over. Something to explore on your own.
Go for it.
Think about the persistence required to find something totally invisible. Marie Curie was looking at a rock, pitch blend, and she knew just by looking at the math that there was something hidden inside it. She couldn't see it, she couldn't touch it, but she knew it was there.
Trusting the data.
Right. So ask yourself, what is your pitch blend? What is the anomaly in your own life or your own work that everyone else is just ignoring? What requires you to grind it out to find the hidden truth?
Because investigating that anomaly might just change the world.
Exactly. Find your pitch blend, investigate the invisible. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.